And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Tuesday, February 8th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by No House Advantage, and we have a 10-game slate ahead of us, back-to-back weeks with oddly large Tuesday slates. I'll take what I can get. Hit that like button if you're here. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how did it shake out for you last night?
Not too bad. Made a little bit in tournaments and then picked up a seat to the $2,500 Millie on DraftKings. So, um,
Nice.
yeah, I mean, nothing crazy, but wasn't bad.
That'll work. Can't complain, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's obviously worse days, that's for sure.
Yeah, that there are.
Well, yeah, we got 10 games to talk about here coming off of yesterday's 5-gamer. Plenty of different things that we could touch on. This is, at least in my opinion, after taking my lap through on the process, an incredibly difficult slate. Everything to me looked very, very similar on DraftKings. When I ran my sim crunch, the difference between the guy that showed up first and the guy that showed up like 25th was like 3 or 4%. Everything is just smushed together and low. So I think we're going to have a lot to dig into here.
Sounds good.
Sort of. We'll start it off in Phoenix. Well, technically in Philadelphia, but we are starting with the Phoenix Suns. 2-point dogs in Philly, 216 total. Suns are on a back-to-back. I'm assuming that whatever we got yesterday for the Suns is what we'll get today. So no Campaign, no Landry Shamet, no Kaminsky, no Abdel Nader. On the Philadelphia side, Q-tag on Matisse Thybulle. No sign of Shake Milton for this one. So for Phoenix, I don't really see a ton here that I'm trying to get to on a 10-gamer. Like Devin Booker is 8,500 on FanDuel. I think he looks good, but not great. I think Chris Paul looks okay, but he's still expensive. I just don't see a legitimate priority for the Suns.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I see a true priority, but I do think that there's still guys you can get to. Obviously, Booker and Paul are both fine. You have Chris Paul playing a ton of minutes with Cameron Payne out. Booker playing a ton of minutes because he pretty much always does. So either of those guys are still fine. The There are a couple of cheap pieces as well, though. Like Jay Crowder at 4,100, he's been playing a bit more recently. He's been playing well also. He's never someone that, especially on a 10-game slate, that you're like building around, but I do think there's some value there. And then probably not going to be a great play because there are 10 games, but JaVale McGee at 3,400 is clearly underpriced.
Absolutely. Shouldn't have that price tag. It doesn't appear that they're going to Biyombo any longer with any sort of regularity. So I do like that shout for McGee. I see everybody, for the most part, from Phoenix in the same sort of vein as McGee. Like, yeah, I'd be happy to take some shots on that guy, but I don't think I see a person that I would have in 10% or more of my lineups today from Phoenix.
Yeah, exactly. Like I got to McGee yesterday at a pretty or a relatively high rate, but like that was a smaller slate. Here, there's just going to be more opportunity costs. So I think on average, you're probably getting like 16 or so minutes from him. Yesterday, he played 22 for whatever reason. Ayton only played 23 or 24. But yeah, it's like I think he's underpriced. I think Crowder's underpriced. I think Booker, Paul are fairly priced. But I also just think that over the next 17 or 19 teams we talk about, there's going to be guys that are more underpriced.
DeAndre Ayton, 28, 24, 24, 24 his last 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, part of that was blowout.
Okay.
But I'm not entirely sure what it looks like. There were some foul issues yesterday. He picked up his third foul with 2 minutes and 44 seconds to go in the second quarter. So you can say he lost 3 minutes there, and you can say he lost like 2 minutes at the end of the game. I think assuming he plays like 28 minutes is a fair projection. He could certainly play more.
Yeah,
but
I went 29.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Anywhere in the 28 to 30 range, I think is fair.
Alrighty. But yeah, it's like I thought Devin Booker at 8,500 on FanDuel would pop even more than he is, and he's just not right now. And that's even at a pretty big minutes projection. It's just going to be a weird slate today. We switch it over to Philly, where at the very least we can talk about Joel Embiid, 11K on FanDuel, 12K on DraftKings, 1.78 FanDuel points per minute over the past 30 days, just absolutely smashing. Now, that is not how I have him projected for this one. I think he looks good, not great. I think Seth Curry looks good, not great. I think Maxey, at least on DraftKings at 7,400, looks good, not great. But once again, I'm looking at a team where I'm not entirely sure I have a ton of priorities here. I think it's Curry on FanDuel, Maxey on DraftKings, and then whatever Embiid you can get to, go for it.
Maxey on DraftKings.
Yeah, 54 or 7,400. I don't think that I have him projected like all that crazy. It's just this is another guy that's playing 38 minutes a game.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's okay. I don't
0.87. Yeah, and look, I'm talking like maybe the 20 to 25th best play on this slate. So just for reference sake.
like. I think Maxey and Harris on DraftKings are pretty similar, with Maxey at 7,400, Harris at 82.
Interesting.
Curry
I have Maxey by quite a bit.
Curry at 5,400 is probably like the easiest one to get to out of that group, I think.
Yeah.
And then Embiid, I mean, clearly, if you can get to him, you're going to be happy about that. 12K is a pretty healthy price tag at center on a 10-game slate, but just playing out of his mind. I mean, he's got a 40+% usage rate over the last month. He's still giving you 32 to 34 minutes nightly. This should be a competitive game. I think Embiid looks. I think Embiid still looks like the best option relative to his salary on this team. It's just that the salary is very expensive and there's a ton of opportunity cost that comes with it.
Highest owned guy for Philadelphia is Joel Embiid at 10% on DraftKings. He's 18 on FanDuel. I don't really see it today. I kind of like the other pay up options for right now. Curry is at 6, no one else above 1. So if Tyrese Maxey really is 0.3% owned, I like Maxey the most in GPPs just because of the lack of ownership in the minutes. But I do agree that Curry and Embiid both stand out as well. I don't know if I like all that much else.
43% usage rate, 30.2% assist percentage since January 1st.
So where do you then put him on a day like today?
Normally, I end up coming in at like 40 and 28.
Okay. Yeah, I am significantly lower than that on Embiid right now. Still great, but not all the way. By the way, Booker, 12.5% owned on FanDuel. No one else on either FanDuel or DraftKings is above 7.6%, which is the guy that you mentioned, JaVale McGee. So yeah, JaVale is the highest owned guy on the Suns on DraftKings right now. That's what kind of slate we have today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mispricing.
Yeah.
The thing you'll want to pay attention to there is like if somehow no value on a 10-gamer opens up, then McGee should pull ownership because he's clearly mispriced. If value opens up, even if they're not as good of a point per minute guy as McGee, because they won't be, just getting guys at like small forward, power forward, or whatever that are cheap and are going to let you get the very high upside centers is what's going to drive McGee's ownership down later on.
Yeah, for sure. Weird game to start the day. I definitely want to watch it. I don't necessarily know how much I'm going to have from a DFS perspective.
Yeah.
Speaking of games, I don't know what I'm going to do. Indiana, 9.5 point underdogs in Atlanta. You would think that Indiana is just going to be dripping with value after slowly but surely hemorrhaging all of their legitimate players, but we might get Brogdon back today. I have no idea. He's questionable. We do have Sabonis back here. We've got Chris Duarte projected for 17% ownership on FanDuel. Nobody else is above 8 on either site. The highest I got anybody here, and I do have the everybody in, the highest I got of anybody on either site was 6% of Duarte. I think Indiana looks like actively bad.
Yeah, I mean, if Brogdon's in, it becomes pretty difficult because you're taking minutes away from Sykes, who started last game and is cheap. Washington probably doesn't play quite as much as he did last game when he played 31 minutes. You're cutting into Sabonis's rates. You're cutting into Duarte's rates. So I agree. If Brogdon's in, I think it becomes difficult to really like too much here. You can still take some shots at $9,400 to Sabonis with power forward eligibility. But I think everything else becomes pretty difficult. It's if Brogdon is out again where I think stuff starts to open up. So
if there's no Brogdon, I'm assuming Sykes is the guy that ends up looking like the best option here for the Pacers.
I think Sykes and Washington. Sykes started last game, played like 25 minutes. He looks fine at 3,900. Dwayne Washington played 31 off the bench. Even in previous games, you were getting like 26, 27 minutes from Washington. So I feel relatively comfortable with him getting at least 27 or 28 minutes, especially if Brogdon is out. At 4,100, that makes him look okay. But then you're also getting those bumps in rates for Sabonis and Duarte. That'll make them look a little bit better. I think Sabonis looks good one way or the other, but if Brogdon's out, I really like Sabonis at 9,400.
Dwayne Washington, by the way, 5,500 on FanDuel, just shooting guard eligible. A lot less in play than he is on DraftKings at 4,100.
And also for anyone that's thinking it or eventually going to say it, Sabonis only played 25 minutes last game because he picked up 3 fouls in the first quarter. He missed a bunch of his normal first quarter rotations, but there's no real reason to think he's not playing like 36 plus, barring foul trouble.
I gave him 34 just because it's the final 2 days before the trade deadline, and
that's fair.
They have literally nothing to play for right now. I don't want to project him too far gone when I don't really know what they're going to be doing.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, if this were like a competitive game and everything, he'd be playing 40.
Maybe.
Like if the Pacers had a reason to care and this game were competitive, like
I would have him at 36 and I wouldn't even be batting an eye. And I think 38 would be like the most, I'd be more likely to go to 38 than 34.
Right. Yeah. Like I think we're kind of saying the same thing. Like my normal Sabonis projection is 38 minutes. So me going to 36 is accounting for, he is in his second game back or whatever, and he could be traded tomorrow. I think we're saying the same thing. But my main point is like, don't do the thing like somebody, and I'm not like picking on them, but like somebody did it with Donovan Mitchell yesterday, said that they thought Mitchell would play like 26 minutes because he played 22 in his first game back, but it was like massive blowout or something. It was the same thing here. Like I think there's a tendency to say, oh, first game back, 25 minutes makes sense. But he was just in massive foul trouble in the first quarter or first half.
Yeah, I gave him the 34 pretty easily. If I was going to move it, it would be to 36. I have no he's going to play normal starter run when he can. I just don't know how much they really dial him up now that their season is essentially over. And who knows if he's even on the Indiana Pacers in the next 48 hours. Anything else for Indiana?
Nope.
So for Atlanta, we have a probable tag on John Collins, a Q tag on Gallo, and a doubtful tag on Lou Will. Trae Young is the highest owned guy in this game, 22% on FanDuel, 15 on DraftKings. Completely agree. I think he looks good on both sites. Kevin Huerter is the highest owned guy on DraftKings. That makes me feel pretty good considering I had him as my number one contender on DK today. Not that it was like a shining example of great plays. It's just a testament to what today looks like. 4,300 shooting guard, small forward, tends to get a couple extra minutes when Lou Will isn't around. We also see DeAndre Hunter get to 15% ownership. But let's start here with Trae. How you feel?
I'm always happy to get to him. I mean, I wasn't too happy I got to him last slate when he was absolutely horrible. But 9,800, I think, is a very favorable price tag for him. 118 implied total for Atlanta is extremely high. You're just likely to get 36 minutes or so, assuming the Pacers can hang in this game. And the level of production Young gives you. So I think he looks extremely good at 9,800.
Yeah, it looks good to me. How do you feel about that Kevin Huerter ownership and value today?
I mean, I'm never super excited to get to him when Young is playing, but I still think it's likely you get around, 32 to 34 minutes. Makes him look decent. Like he's another guy where right now I think he looks like a pretty good value, but chances are by the time we get to the deeper dive and live before lock and, tip, he looks not as good.
Yeah, that's fair. He's always going to look like solid on a day like today. Sure. 4,300, probably plays 30 minutes. The position helps out a ton. Like he's easy to slot in. Every piece of value just makes him less and less interesting because his ceiling isn't the same.
What are you doing with Capella?
I gave him 24 minutes at 2% ownership. I've got some interest at 5,500, but like, I don't know if he's the guy anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I've been giving him 24 minutes too, but it's just not happening. Like he's not closing games.
He has averaged 23 minutes in the 9 games that he's played since he was out for an extended time. The most that he played was 26.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a tricky spot because I don't think that you can really expect him to close. He's just not doing anything anymore. They're going to Collins. Okongwu was getting solid run as well, but at the same time, that doesn't mean he's never going to close another game. And his price point's getting to a point where if for any reason he plays like 26 to 28 minutes, he's probably helping you win a tournament. So it's not anything I want crazy amounts of because I just have no confidence in his playing time at this point. But the salary and ownership is getting pretty tempting.
Unless the minutes are a function of like they don't want to play him more, like a physical thing, there's no reason that if Capella is having a really good game that he doesn't just close. Like,
Sure.
If Capella's got 16 and 16 through 3 quarters, I have no reason to suspect that he doesn't, like today, just doesn't become a 28 to 30 minute game.
Yeah. And if you have 16 and 16 through 3 quarters, you don't really care because you already won.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I like the idea of taking a shot at 5,500. 2% owned. I got him at 6. So he would be the type of guy that I would get to like 10 to 12% of. And, that's just like one of those lottery ticket type plays you have for the day.
Yeah.
I like, yeah, go ahead.
And in a similar conversation, it does make Collins look a little bit better. The fact that he is getting center minutes, because for a while you were just getting basically Capella and Okongwu at center, and that's not good for Collins. But him getting minutes at the 5 means, for one, you can project him for a couple of more minutes, and 2, that he just produces better. So I am interested in going back to Collins here at 6,900.
Would you rather take a shot on Capella or Okongwu?
Capella.
Okay, just checking.
I think
3,700 for Okongwu. Had to ask the question.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're going with. Like, I think Capella. It's just, it's difficult for me to see. I mean, it's difficult for me to see the game where either one of them plays like 26 minutes at this point. But it's more difficult for me to see the one where Okongwu does.
Anything else we should touch on here for Atlanta?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Gallo at 3,900, Hunter at 4,600. They both look Kevin Herter-y, I think.
Yeah.
Just sort
Gallo
of
questionable too, by the way. Does that impact anything for you?
Who?
Gallo is questionable.
Oh, I mean, he played last game. I assume he's going to go today. But yeah, if he's out, don't play him.
Thanks, man.
If he's out, I don't even know who really benefits. You probably just see more like, if he's out, you probably actually see a little bit more Okongwu. And you probably
say, do we just get 48 minutes of Capella and Okongwu at the 5?
That's what I was thinking, is you could just get like a 24-24 split or something.
Yeah.
Which would be bad. I mean, it would be a negative for Collins in that he's not playing center, but it would also solidify his minutes, not having Gallo behind them probably.
Right. Atlanta's weird today. Definitely a spot we need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Kind of hope that Brogdon
I would say
plays
Young and Collins look like guys that... What'd you say?
I was saying I hope Brogdon plays just to like maybe make this game mildly more competitive.
Yeah. I think Young and Collins are the pieces that like I actively want to get to here. But then all of Capella, Bogdan, Herter, Hunter, Gallo, Okongwu, I mean, at his salary on DraftKings, like they're all just sort of like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised seeing them in a lineup. I wouldn't like think I did anything wrong.
Well, guys, schedule for the rest of the day. We have the NFL strategy show coming up at 11 a.m., the PGA strategy show coming up at 1 p.m., NHL strategy show at 2. We have the Yahoo NBA show at 3. No House Advantage NBA show at 3:30. Adam will be back for the deeper dive at 4:45 with Laffy, and that will lead into NBA Live Before Lock at 6. I'm so happy that you also saw the Isaiah Washington thing again. I laughed to myself. It was fantastic. How that's possible 2 times in a row is amazing to me.
I mean, it's just Isaiah Jackson and Dwayne Washington.
Sure. But, it's twice. NBA ownership rankings, free today. PGA top golfers are free. Keep your eyes peeled for the breakfast menu betting video with myself and Ben Raza. And then NHL top stacks are free. Lots of content, both video and just free on the website for you guys to peruse today. We move to Boston. The Boston Celtics are 5.5-point favorites in Brooklyn. Everybody that's normally available for Boston is available. Ownership on FanDuel. Tatum, 20. Brown, 14. Time Lord, 13. Smart, 14. Horford, 15. We're getting to all of Boston on FanDuel. On DraftKings, it's a concentration of Marcus Smart at 5,100, 20% owned. Jason Tatum, 9,900, 13% owned. So you don't normally get to Boston all that frequently, but prices are starting to look a little bit better depending on the site. And facing the Brooklyn Nets is certainly a spot where you can look a little bit better. So I like Boston.
Yeah, and this is, as like a whole, this is one of those teams that right now I think they look good, and by lock they'll probably look a little bit worse. Because now it's just kind of like any team that is moderately priced is going to look pretty good. As other stuff opens up, you'll start to get away from them. But I like, this is another team where I just kind of across the board like most of the rotation guys. Marcus Smart is pulling the most ownership on DraftKings. I think he deserves that at 5,100. He's not the best fantasy producer by any stretch, but he's not bad. And you can expect 32, 33 minutes here. He just, looks pretty good at that price. Al Horford has shown some signs of life recently. I don't know if maybe he, got some steroid injections or something, but he's been playing a little bit better. I expect, on average, you're getting like 27, 28 minutes, but certainly could play more. Robert Williams is playing a lot. He's very good. He is center only on DraftKings, which is a bit of a problem. And then Tatum and Brown, clearly, like, you can get to those guys whenever you want. I don't love the salaries on them, but in tournaments, I still think they're fine. Tatum, for example, getting 13% ownership at 9,900. I think I would rather have Trae Young at 9,800, but nothing wrong with getting to Tatum.
I would prefer to have Trae Young at that price too. Tatum and Brown just better on FanDuel. Tatum 9,200 instead of the 9,900 price tag. Jaylen Brown 8,200 instead of the $8,900 price tag. They're just much easier to get to on FanDuel today. But I want to get all of that starting five.
Yeah, agreed. Especially the way things look right now. And if you get a little bit of Josh Richardson at 3,800, just, don't watch the game. Don't refresh his stats because they probably won't really change. But, end of the day, he could be there.
Shooting guard, small forward, at least. So you get the good flexibility.
Yeah. What do you think about Schroeder at 4,300?
This is right? Because I also think that he's going to get I think he's almost guaranteed to be traded in the next 2 days. And then I don't know what they do.
Well, and he's kind of like the guard version of Capella. He's just not playing. Yeah. He's playing 16 to 20 minutes. Even at 4,300, if he plays 18 minutes, I don't want that. But what happens if he just plays well off the bench? Are they really just going to say, okay, you're still done at 20 minutes?
Probably.
What'd you say?
Probably.
Yeah. He's still, yeah. I don't know. It's just one of those, on a 10-game slate, I don't think you really end up getting there. But you just look at it. It's one of those, if Schroeder's in the winning lineup, you're going to look at it and just be pissed off. Wow, why didn't I take any shots at $4,300 Schroeder?
Anxious to see where he ends up getting offloaded to.
Washington.
Sure. I mean, you're advocating for Westbrook, so obviously you're happy to take on shitty players.
I would be happy with Westbrook. Assuming they didn't give anything up. Schroeder, I do not want.
If they gave up something to get Westbrook, they should relegate the team to the G League for being stupid.
I mean, if they just get Westbrook back, he gets bought out and then just comes to Washington, they would have just gotten Kuzma and Harrell and KCP for free. So,
sure. All right. Does James Harden play today? Because he's James Harden with no Kyrie and no Kevin Durant, and this is kind of a swing piece.
Yeah, I don't know, because I still kind of don't have a feel for if he's actually hurt or if he's just being a drama queen.
Is he being a drama queen?
Yes.
I mean, if I'm James Harden, it's just oh yeah, I came here to play with, 3 stars. Katie's hurt pretty regularly, and Kyrie refuses to get vaccinated, so can only play in away games. I feel like he's not getting what he thought he was going to get. The Kyrie piece has to be incredibly frustrating to James Harden.
Yeah, I'm sure it's frustrating, but this guy literally just quit on his team 2 years ago to force a trade to this team. And then all we've seen recently is leaked reports that he wants out. And in the middle of that, sitting out, being hurt. But then when he did play, he scores 4 points in the entire game. I don't know. I mean, I still lean towards probably it was a fluky game and he is actually hurt, but it's a lot of coincidences kind of all being lumped up on top of each other.
Well, here's a fun piece of information for you today. James Harden is 9,500 on FanDuel shooting guard small forward eligibility today.
I mean, if he plays, play him.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he plays, he's probably my favorite play at 9,500. No other stars on it. I don't think that Cam Thomas, DeAndre Bembry, Kessler Edwards, Javon Carter are going to be yanking the ball out of his hands all that frequently. I like Harden a lot today if he's available to play. I like him at 11-2 on DraftKings, just point guard. Clearly not as much as I like him at 9,500, but he looks good still. Yeah,
I mean, even on DraftKings at 11-2, you get, even though he's point guard only, that's still one extra roster spot compared to somebody like Embiid. you can't project him for the same point per minute production as somebody like Embiid or Jokic, but he's also a little bit less expensive, a little bit less opportunity cost. So, yeah, I mean, he looks really good if he plays.
What do we do with the rest of this team? And do you want to get to 22% on James Johnson, which I'm quite confident is not going to hold, but
Yeah.
maybe it does.
I mean, at 3,600, it's fine. That's a lot of ownership, though, on a 10-game slate.
Yeah.
The
Nick
Claxton piece,
questionable.
Yeah, the Claxton piece matters too, because if he's in, then like I'm not really interested in a $4,600 Griffin. Claxton at 4,200 would be okay, but I think there's a decent chance you just kind of end up with like a 24-24 split. If he's out though, Griffin with power forward eligibility starts to look like a pretty good value at 4,600. If Harden is out, Mills looks good at 5,800. He's got like a 24.5% usage rate without the main guys on the floor this year. Cam Thomas would probably be needed to score at 4,800. So, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here that we will hopefully have cleaned up by later.
I think Brooklyn ends up with a sub 100 implied total if James Harden gets ruled out of this game.
I think that's fair.
They're going to be in real trouble to score the basketball today.
Somebody said, how do you feel about Cam Thomas? At 4,800, if Harden is in, it's really nothing more than like a tournament flyer for me, because for one, you still have to get the minutes, which I think are likely to be there. He's been playing well, and he does, bring scoring that they really don't have right now. But we've seen Steve Nash frequently enough just do weird shit with his rotation. So like the minutes aren't guaranteed. But then too, at 4,800, like you need him to really play well. If Harden is out, then I like him just because who else is scoring outside of Patty Mills?
Good point. Okay. Just really, really weird game today. Really got to pay attention to Brooklyn. Chach one with the super chat said, do you use randomness on a sliding scale based on slate? Have you found your own optimal numbers that you use for most effective randomness? I don't use it as a sliding number based on slate. I use it based on standard deviation of a player, or at least a portion of that.
Same.
Yeah. And there's no right or wrong answer to this. I can get similar lineups with 0 randomness, 200% randomness. It's all about knowing what the other settings in Fantasy Cruncher do in order to generate your lineups.
Yep.
So practice and rewind.
Yeah, exactly. Like just figure out what works for you. Like Josh said, like you can use 0 randomness and like strict exposure caps, and you're going to get what you're looking for basically in your set of lineups. You can use more randomness and no exposure caps and get the very similar thing. So yeah, just kind of figure out what works for you. Figure out, whatever is giving you lineups that look the way you want them to. It's a combination of things, of settings that basically have to work together.
Yep.
In general, as a general rule, the stricter your exposure caps are, the less randomness you should probably be using.
Yep. That's a good answer. Clippers, 7.5 point dogs in Memphis, 228 total. And I'm just going to say right away, I don't know if we could roster any single Clipper with confidence. Do you look at anything when you see the Clippers and think, all right, that guy is one guy that I want to start with?
No, especially not at these salaries. It's not like you're really getting much of a discount on anything. We've seen at times when the Clippers have been healthy this year, just really, really ugly rotations from a DFS standpoint. And adding Powell and Covington, I don't think is doing any favors. We got them both off the bench last game. I don't know how much longer that lasts, but 23 and a half minutes for Covington, 24 minutes for Powell. Nobody on the team got to 30 minutes. Marcus Morris played 29 minutes and 52 seconds. That was the closest that we got. The game there was, a couple minutes of garbage time at the end, but point stands that you just got a very deep rotation. Like they didn't kick anybody out of the rotation. So basically you just removed Eric Bledsoe and added Powell and Covington.
It's just like, it's weird because if they ran this like a normal team and they got like 34-minute rotations, just one random day, there's a couple of these guys that are going to look exceptional.
Yeah.
But right now, I feel like I could pick 5 random guys and that might be the closing lineup.
It's just so it feels like they're stuck between what they're trying to do. Like Are you trying to win games now, or are you trying to develop guys like Amir Coffey and Terrence Mann?
Yeah.
And they're kind of trying to do both.
I don't blame them. Like, if you're not, like, they have enough talent on the team. And once again, to whoever was trying to tell me that the Clippers aren't as good as the Rockets and the Magic without Paul George. Yeah, I was getting told that the Clippers without Paul George are worse than the Rockets and the Magic. And they were like, 500 point differential with those guys, or with Paul George off. I think they could just sort of mix and match these guys and be good, and try to find out how good is Amir Coffey and some of these young guys. Like,
yeah, and you're going to make the playoffs, and then just like obviously cut it down. Then
they're going to make it one way or the other, and
like they're not getting. It doesn't matter what they do; they're not getting like the 1 seed, and
right.
It doesn't really matter what they do; they're not going to miss probably. Yeah. So
right, they could basically just feed both masters here and do whatever the hell they want to do, and they're set. 538 NBA. So their odds on 538 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they are projected to get the 8 seed, 51% to make the playoffs. So yeah, like, you could handle having Amir Coffey and stuff still be in the rotation. When it comes to DFS, though, this would be the team I would be most likely to not have today.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you're getting there, I think it's Morris, Jackson, maybe throw darts at Zubats and hope he gets 24 minutes. But I really think it's Jackson, Morris, and then pretty much I don't care about this team.
On the Memphis side, Desmond Bane, 12% owned on FanDuel. Ja's about 10 on FanDuel and DK. Jaren Jackson's about 10 on DK. Morant, Bane, and Jackson would be the first 3 guys that I'm looking to. That's probably more of a DraftKings thing than a FanDuel thing. No priorities, but I do think the starting 5 for Memphis is viable.
I still like Morant quite a bit. I mean, I just like getting there whenever Dylan Brooks is out. It makes such a big difference for Morant from a fantasy standpoint. 10-1, he's in that same price range as Trae Young. He's getting 11% ownership. I think that's the spot to pay attention to where ownership shakes out. Right now, they're about the same, 15% for Young, 11 for Morant. But if that gap were to sort of separate, I would just be pretty interested in the lower owned one. I think they have very, very similar ceilings. Jaren Jackson at 6,800, I think looks pretty good. Bane at 6,900 is fine. Yeah, I mean, I like all 3 of those guys. Morant would be my favorite, but obviously he's also the most difficult to get to.
Yeah, it's just a sort of a balanced team. They're so good right now.
They're really fun.
Curious to see
really
what they do. Them. Yeah, I'm really anxious to see what they do over the next 12 months, because they got to make one move, but they only have the opportunity to basically make one move, and I'm anxious to see what it ends up being. Whether that's like a monster
Chandler
consolidation. Yeah, it will probably be Chandler Parsons. Or bring back Tony Allen, Zebo. Anything else here from Memphis?
Not really. Adams, Clark, or whatever. You're probably getting 26 minutes or so from Adams. Probably getting 18 to 20 from Clark. But I think it's pretty much just building around Morant, Jackson, Bane.
For Houston, they are 7-point dogs in New Orleans, 227 total. And we're not going to have Eric Gordon for this one. He is doubtful with plantar fasciitis and the trade deadline blues, which will be commencing in 2 days. So lots to like here for Houston, but we need to talk about the biggest piece. 26% owned on FanDuel at 5K, 36% owned on DraftKings at 4,500. How much Şengün can we get to today? How much do you expect to see him alongside Christian Wood?
I expect to have a ton of Şengün. He's 4,500 with power forward eligibility on DraftKings. So for one, Steven Silas has just been like flip-flopping on what he wants to do. He had said that he doesn't like playing Wood and Şengün alongside each other. He's not going to do that anymore.
Whoa.
What?
The New Orleans Pelicans are finalizing a deal to acquire Portland Trailblazers guard CJ McCollum for a package around Josh Hart and draft compensation.
Why?
Because David Griffin wants to save his job.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if Josh Hart is worse than CJ McCollum or better than CJ McCollum.
And he's not getting paid the same, right?
No, it's got 1/3 if I had to guess.
Yeah.
I mean, CJ makes like $30 million.
Yeah. That is not where I thought he'd end up going.
No, not so much. Apologies for cutting you off, but that tweet just popped up and that
Yeah.
felt relevant considering we're going to talk about the Pelicans in about 5 seconds.
Yeah, man, that's like I don't get too into actual NBA thoughts, but first thought is that makes no sense for the Pels. Good job for the Blazers.
Yeah, I love it for the Blazers. I would not want any part of CJ right now.
Yeah, so as far as Houston goes, Silas went from not wanting to play Şengün and Wood alongside each other to then saying he's going to start doing it more. Last game they started next to each other in this same matchup, so I assume they're going to do it again. Like, even if they don't, I think it's an easy spot for them to play alongside each other, given how New Orleans has been playing Jackson Hayes alongside Valanciunas a bunch. It just makes a ton of sense. Şengün was in some foul trouble last game, picked up 3 fouls in the first half, still played 25 and a half minutes. If he plays 25, 26 minutes at 4,500 with power forward eligibility, he looks great. If he gets to 30 minutes, he looks unbelievably good. Out of everyone we've talked about so far, I would assume Şengün's my highest owned guy.
Yeah, I'm with you. I gave him 26 minutes for right now, still popping up like it's really good. But I like the rest of Houston. I'm happy to get to a bunch of Kevin Porter at 5,600. I think that ownership is reasonable. Jayshawn Tate's pulling about 12% ownership. I think he looks good. Not in love with Christian Wood, but I think he looks fine. I just like a lot of the pieces of Houston, like normal. When you take Eric Gordon out, I think it just makes everybody look a little bit better.
Yeah, Porter's salary dropped a bit too. He's down to 5,600. Looks decent. Christian Wood, I think also it's important to keep in mind he benefits from playing alongside Şengün as well, because when they're not playing alongside each other, you're basically talking about 32 minutes, kind of like a cap for Wood, assuming that Şengün's going to get at least 16 minutes a game. Playing alongside each other, it allows Wood to get 34 to 36 minutes. So an $8,200 Christian Wood playing, I'll call it 34 minutes, that's not bad either. Mentioned Porter, Tate and Green both look fine. If you want to take some shots at Garrison Matthews at 4,300, that's not the end of the world either. I think Şengün's very clearly the priority. I think Wood and Porter are next. Then I would say Green, Tate, followed by throwing darts at Matthews, Christopher, Martin, whatever you want to do there.
I want to be very clear right now. This trade is absolutely terrible for New Orleans. CJ makes $33 million next year, 35, 36 the year after that. I would rather have Josh Hart, all things equal. They are not equal, certainly from a contract perspective, and they won't be. Per dunks and threes estimated wins this year, McCollum is at 2.9 wins added. Josh Hart, 2.8. Josh Hart, 60% true shooting this season.
Yeah, it's a really weird trade.
CJ's not young. He's getting worse. He's had some injury problems recently, obviously collapsed lung this year. 53% true shooting for CJ McCollum. I mean, this is David Griffin trying to save his job by getting a vet in, and I'm not entirely sure this improves this team.
It's like a weird fit too.
Yeah, so it's Devontae Graham, McCollum, Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram, Joval is the starting 5 then, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like it. David Porter. Yeah, but the Pels can win right now with CJ. They can't win shit with CJ McCollum. They could bring Dame too, and it's not going to make a lick of difference for the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah, I mean, do you mean win right now like they can beat Houston? But like they're not
They're projected to go 36 and 46.
Right.
They're going to be in the play-in and get smacked around in that likely too. This is a terrible deal. When I first
they gave
saw
up draft picks to do it.
Right. I would have assumed it had to be the opposite way, that the Pelicans would acquire draft compensation to try to cover this awful like CJ McCollum's contract is probably one of the worst contracts in basketball. He's going to make $70 million over the next 2 seasons at 31 and 32. And it's not very good right now. He's not exactly having a great season. And I don't know. I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. I don't know why you would want to make that deal. It's bad. And I've already recorded contenders just to let everybody know. There's no chance in hell that I'm recording it again dealing with CJ McCollum news. Oh, man. All right, well, let's go to the Pelicans now, where I guess we can go ahead and leave Josh Hart out, who was projected for 17% ownership on FanDuel, 21 on DK. Brandon Ingram projected for 33% ownership on FanDuel at 7,800. Joval getting a ton of love at 7,200 on FanDuel. Devontae Graham getting about 15% ownership. I guess we need to talk about this with like the thought of Josh Hart not being there. So we're going to get more minutes for Garrett Temple, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jackson Hayes. I like the Pelicans a lot because they play Houston.
Yeah. Joval at 8,300 certainly looks fine. Expecting around 32 minutes or so there. Pretty similar to Christian Wood. I think that Joval looks probably a little bit better, but I don't think there should be much of an ownership gap between them. Right now, we have Joval at 8%. We have Wood at 5%. So seems like we have that projected to be, about where it should. But I think that very high ceiling there. Ingram at 9,200 certainly looks good. He's playing a ton of minutes again, assuming he's going to play 37, 38 here. Graham at 5,200 looks fine. Hayes, power forward eligible at 5,500 is okay. Obviously, he's been playing a lot alongside Joval. I assume now he's going to start. It makes me the trade actually makes me more confident Şengün is starting for Houston as well. But I assume now you're just getting a Şengün, Wood, and Hayes, Joval starting front courts from these two. So Hayes, assuming he's going to play 30 plus minutes now, looks pretty good at 5,500. Herbert Jones is fine.
I thought you were going to keep going there. Herbert Jones is fine. I thought there was a comma and one additional player coming.
Yeah. No, a couple people are saying Hayes might be in the trade.
I mean, I'm assuming they read Bobby Marks's tweet of a potential trade of McCollum, Tony Snell, and Zeller for Hart, Jackson Hayes, Satoransky, and a first. I don't know. We have no idea right now. That's just Bobby Marks's guess from an ESPN article a week ago. We shall see. I'm sure they'd be happy to get rid of Hayes. Hard to talk about this Pelicans team right now, but I can say this much. I really like Brandon Ingram for 7,800, no matter what pieces are coming in or out for New Orleans today.
Yeah, agreed with that. And so I guess basically just if Hayes is starting, I like him. If Hayes is not on the Pels anymore, don't play him. If Hayes isn't there, I assume Garrett Temple is starting and playing a lot at 3,500. That would look pretty good. You could take shots on Alvarado getting more minutes if Jackson Hayes is no longer on the team as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a wild one.
And Alexander Walker. If Hayes is gone, I mean, I guess it's worth mentioning just quickly because Hernan Gomez is out. If Hayes is gone, Joval probably plays more. I'm guessing, I think Cheatham's on the team now, and he would back up Joval. Gary Clark could back him up. But the main relevance from a DFS standpoint, I think if Hayes is part of this deal, is that you're going to get more Ingram at the 4, and it's going to open up minutes for some combination of Alexander Walker, Temple, Alvarado.
Yeah. Trey Murphy got 15 minutes and 16 minutes on the first and the fourth. Another guy to keep an eye on there. That could fall into extra time. Let's not forget the Pelicans let Lonzo Ball walk for basically less money. Might want to get him back instead of CJ McCollum. Just putting it out there.
I'm interested now to see what chat's thoughts are on Lonzo Ball. He's always been polarizing.
I mean, if they're not, this guy is really good and is an excellent starter on teams that are good. That should be the answer. Oh, man. Lonzo shooting 42% from 3 this year as a fantastic defensive option. The dynasty. Hayes is not a nice get for Portland. He's not good. So,
I mean, in this context, I think it's a nice get.
I mean, anything's a nice get if it's just a guy on a rookie deal. It doesn't he's not paid it matters or anything like that, but has not been anything good at all and doesn't profile as it.
Yeah. But you're getting other stuff for CJ McCollum, then you're also just getting this young dude that maybe improves.
Yeah, I'd rather have Jackson Hayes on his contract than continue to pay CJ McCollum $75 million to do absolutely nothing. But he's not the it's a great lottery ticket to grab, I guess.
Yeah.
The most
and for anyone in chat that's disappointed because they were And anybody in chat is disappointed because they were getting a sneaky Jackson Hayes. Jackson Hayes was 15% owned last slate coming off the bench. He was probably going to have some ownership today.
Yeah, he's 5,500. All right, well, keep your eyes peeled on everything else that's going on today. It's going to matter. Whew. All righty. Well, let's talk a little bit about the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be No House Advantage. And if you guys use the promo code Awesemo when you sign up at No House Advantage, you can get up to $25 on your first deposit. There are going to be some props that slowly pop up over the next couple of days that are really going to point you in a different direction. You're going to be able to find guys that are traded that open up a ton of value for you. Like Joval, for example, 17.5 points, 11 rebounds. I think the minutes can go up there on a day like today if this trade ends up going through. Make sure you're paying attention to some of the options that exist for Portland if they are available on No House Advantage, because Portland is going to be potentially missing or giving some additional minutes out there for the rest of the slate. Who else could pop? I guess Brandon Ingram, in theory, could potentially look a little bit better. Devontae Graham could, in theory, look a little bit better. I'm trying to find anybody else that I want to hit you with a
Hayes, Alexander Walker.
Yeah.
If you're bet, and I don't bet, so this might just be a stupid thing, but like if you do bet props, shouldn't you kind of just be betting the overs there and hoping that Jackson Hayes ends up being part of this trade? Or not? Like either way, assuming the lines haven't completely adjusted yet.
Yeah, that's a good point. You might be, it might already be too late, but yeah, you should be betting it. You should be playing these props at No House Advantage for sure. So make sure you're checking it all out, guys. Again, use the promo code Awesemo when signing up. The Detroit Pistons are 11.5 point underdogs in Dallas, 214 total. Jeremy Grant is a crisp 5,400 on FanDuel, pulling 26% ownership. I think that's warranted. Don't know if we're going to have Cade Cunningham or not, but he is 6,900 on FanDuel, and we kind of need to play him if he is in. What do you like from Detroit on DraftKings? Because I think the answer is not really anything.
Yeah, that's the answer. If Cunningham is in 8,100, certainly you can take shots there, but it's not a great price tag. Jeremy Grant at 6,200 is fine, but doesn't stand out. Pretty unappealing matchup. 101 total for Detroit, one of the lowest on the slate. Sadiq Bey's salaries come up a bit. Isaiah Stewart's playing good minutes now. He's 5,200. There's going to be centers, I think, that look better. But at the same time, you do have, like when you think about the centers we've talked about in his price range so far, Şengün has power forward eligibility. Jackson Hayes has power forward eligibility. So Stewart looks okay. If Cunningham's out, $4,500 Corey Joseph's a decent value, I think. But right now, I don't really see much, assuming Cunningham is in.
Yeah, we are on the exact same page here. The Grant price on FanDuel, whether Cade is in or not, is a price that you need to attack. And if Cade happens to be out, it's even better than it looks right now.
Yeah, 6,200 Grant on DraftKings is fine one way or the other. If Cunningham's out, there's in theory at least more opportunities. So far this year, his rates actually go down without Cunningham on the floor. But I guess that's the true sign of someone that needs to be the number one on a team, like he thinks is being worse without Cade Cunningham out there. But 32 minutes or so for Graham, 6,200 is fine one way or the other.
And then we go to Dallas, where $11,200 Luka Doncic is 24% owned on FanDuel, 17 on DraftKings. We've got no Porzingis, we've got no Maxey, we've got no Tim Hardaway. Dorian Finney-Smith is projected for 46% ownership on FanDuel, and I think that's completely reasonable. Jalen Brunson's 37% owned on FanDuel, maybe a tad high, but very reasonable that he's pulling ownership. Dwight Powell, 12% owned on DraftKings, 22 on FanDuel, very reasonable. This team looks a lot different than it did like a week or two ago, and they've become way more DFS viable than they used to be.
Yeah, for sure. Clearly you can get to Luka whenever you want. My interest level in him will, at least in part, depend on James Harden's status, because if Harden is in, he's $600 less expensive on DraftKings. I think, projects pretty similarly. If he's out, then obviously he's not an option and there's more value. Luka is more expensive than Embiid. He shouldn't be in terms of like just average production, but he is at a position that has less opportunity cost. So I think he looks pretty good there. Brunson at 6,900, I think is still a pretty solid option. Dwight Powell's played a lot of minutes without Maxey 2 games in a row. I don't love him at 4,700. He's not the most productive guy, but I think there's a very good chance he's getting into the mid 30s in minutes again. Dorian Finney-Smith, kind of the same thing. Should play 38 to 40 minutes most likely. Not a great DFS option, but he's not horrible. And in that amount of playing time, he's likely to get it done at that price. Bullock's been fantastic recently. I think that he continues to play a ton of minutes. I don't necessarily think he continues to score 25 fantasy or 25 actual points or whatever he did last time out, but the opportunities will still be there. He's decent. I would say he's my least favorite out of the starting 5, but certainly still playable. Are you there?
Yeah, I stare at this 46% ownership for Dorian Finney-Smith on FanDuel. And I know why it's happening, because he's playing all of the minutes. He's 4,200 shooting guard, small forward. By the way, Dorian Finney-Smith, not a shooting guard ever for Dallas. How do you handle some ownership like that on a guy that's not a great per minute guy? Is that the guy where you're sort of okay if you end up light there, you're not all that mad about it?
Typically, yeah, because even if Finney-Smith projects as like the best point per dollar option in that price range, typically you're going to be able to find other 5K or so guys that have a similar chance of, scoring the same as Finney-Smith. So typically it's just like there's enough other alternatives that I'm not that scared of Dorian Finney-Smith scoring enough raw points that I have to have him. It's more likely that he scores enough to where he's useful, but like you can still just kind of find ways around it. So it depends what else I'm getting to. Like if there's some 3% owned guy that I'm just higher on than the rest of the field, and I'm playing a lot of them, then I'm probably also playing a lot of Finney-Smith just because he looks like, one of the best values to build around. But assuming that there isn't some guy that I'm just playing a lot of, the field isn't, finding alternatives to low point per minute guys like Finney-Smith is typically what I start doing.
Okay. Yeah, I look at that number and it's completely obvious why it's happening, and it should be happening on today's slate because we just don't have that kind of value. But it starts to get a little scary for Dorian Finney-Smith. Is there anybody else you want to get to here for Dallas? How are you feeling about your boy Marquise Chris for 3,200?
I haven't been too encouraged by the playing time recently. He's played like 12 minutes. You're getting a lot more run from Powell. The one thing I will mention is he played every minute that Dwight Powell was not on the floor last game, just about. So if Powell gets in foul trouble or something, like at 3,200 with power forward eligibility, if Marquise Chris goes from 12 minutes to 16 or 17, he's probably a good play. I wouldn't play him with Powell.
Oh God, are you gonna win a GPP today on the back of Marquise Chris?
I always get too much of him.
I know you do. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Nah, today will be the day that I don't, and then he finally smashes. It happened with Rondo last time Cleveland played. I'd been playing Goodwin, but like playing a good amount of Rondo too. Last slate, I just like play tons of Goodwin, no Rondo, and Goodwin plays 15 minutes and Rondo doesn't.
Yeah. All righty. Let's keep this one moving then. Off to a less interesting team, the New York Knicks, 7-point underdogs at Denver, 217 total. We're getting Kemba back.
The Houston guy's back.
The Houston guy?
I think the Houston team is better than the Clippers without George. I'll take Woods, Şengün, or he said Seguin, and Portier over any 3 Clippers. I don't think that's crazy at all.
Okay. They'll learn how to win in due time. I don't give a shit
confused about
if
we're talking about now or in 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't a long-term prognostication. By the way, I'll take the Clippers too, still, because Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are still on the team. But anyway.
And New York now Knicks, they have Powell and Covington.
Yeah. New York Knicks, Kemba back quickly, Quentin Grimes, not entirely sure. Barrett is 15% owned across both sites. No one else touches 10%. Randall for 8,800 makes some sense on DraftKings. I think Barrett is really the only piece that you can feel happy about here.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Are we assuming Kemba's playing?
Yeah, he's available.
Okay, I hadn't seen.
But I mean, I think he was supposed to be just sitting out for the front end of the back-to-back.
Okay, that makes sense. I just didn't know if that was going to be like, okay, well, you're also sitting out the second half. Um, but yeah, like Randall looks fine at 8,800. Barrett at 7K, just playing massive minutes. Don't point guard small forward on DraftKings is useful as well. Just easier to get him in the lineups. I don't mind taking some shots on Robinson again. Obviously you shouldn't expect what he did last night, but you can still expect 27, 28 minutes at 5,400. He has been playing really well in general recently. So tournament shots on Robinson I think are fine, but Barrett's the only guy that I guess Barrett and Randall Randall 8,800 are the two that I would get to first.
This is a slow Knicks team against a really slow Nuggets team. And the Knicks are one of the trickier teams to even pin down. Someone probably falls into 30 minutes. Who the hell knows who it's going to be? I'll just play Barrett and cross my fingers. I don't know
He's
how
one of those difficult guys for me to get right for DFS.
I know. And the real problem is he gets the good positional designation. So he's even easier to fit in.
Yeah, it's just like he goes like from week to week being like totally different NBA players. Like you'll get a week of just like Knicks reporters tweeting about how Barrett's just like adding all these moves to his game and just like destroying people. And then you get a week of Barrett doing absolutely nothing. And then he goes back to like being great.
God, I hate the Knicks. And then we get to Denver. Nikola Jokic, 11.5 on FanDuel, 12.6 on DraftKings. I ask you this question. Who's a better center option today, Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid?
Whoever's lower owned.
Fair. We have it at Jokic, 7, Embiid, 10.
Probably about where it should be given the $600 price cap.
Yeah, so that answer becomes moot.
Yeah. I guess Embiid. Faster paced game, a little bit cheaper. You're not going to be upset having either one, that's for sure.
I think I lean Embiid, and that makes me feel really bad about Jokic. I don't lean towards really anything here from Denver. I don't see a priority. Do you like anything from the Nuggets?
Not outside of Jokic.
Yeah, it's bleak. It's just a slow slog of a game.
Yeah, and the pricing is like it's not egregiously high, but it's not that favorable. I mean, 6,600 for Barton is a little bit more expensive than he probably should be, especially against the Knicks. Gordon at 5,800, Morris at 5,400. There's just nothing that looks particularly appealing there.
Arguing with Siege about this trade right now, and it's going exactly like the way that you would expect it to.
Siege likes it for the Pels?
Well, he's Team Hayes, which is fine. Don't really care too much about that piece. A little bit more bullish on the CJ, which makes some sense given the initials. But he thinks the Devontae Graham contract is terrible, and I tend to disagree.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
He makes $11 million a year. Oh, here it is. Josh Hart, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Thomas Satoransky, and draft compensation in the CJ McCollum trade per Shams.
All right, so fire up Jackson Hayes and Jose Alvarado.
Yeah.
There you go, David Porter. Now you can play Jose Alvarado.
Najee Marshall might look a little interesting in this one, unless it ends up being Trey Murphy.
I mean, he's been ahead of Murphy's been ahead of him recently. So who are they losing out of the rotation? Hart, Alexander Walker, Satoransky, who's not really in the rotation.
Yeah. Hart, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is per Shams, 10 seconds ago.
Yeah.
The fact that they are also giving up draft compensation,
mind-blowing.
Bravo to whoever's running Portland right now.
Yep.
That you are getting off of CJ for Josh Hart. I think Hart's a free agent. I think he needs to get paid now. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker's on a rookie deal. Satoransky's deal is he's a free agent at the end of the year. Yeah, Hart has two non-guarantees, and you're absolutely picking up the $13 million guarantees on Josh Hart. This is, to me, actively a bad trade for the New Orleans Pelicans.
This is like, so the Blazers called the Pels and they were like, we'll give you McCollum, blah, 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 draft picks. And whoever was talking, whoever the Pels GM is, just like, was like, yeah, so we'll give you draft picks, like her draft picks. And was just like, yeah, so we'll give those and blah, blah, blah. And the Blazers GM was just like, oh, okay, cool. Like, not what I meant, but we'll take them.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't get it.
Well, make sure you're tuning into the trade deadline show on Thursday at 1:30 because I'm going to do this for 2 hours and that's going to be fun. We've got 3 games to go, 13 minutes to do it. So let's pick up the pace. Milwaukee, I got to stop looking at trade deals. Milwaukee, 4.5-point favorites in Los Angeles against the Lakers, 230 total. No real ownership coming into the Bucks here. 6% owned. Bobby Portis is the highest on DK. Portis and Giannis both in the teens on FanDuel. Do you want to get to more Milwaukee against the Lakers here?
I think Giannis might be my favorite pay-up guy at the moment. Just because he has power forward eligibility. Like, obviously, I would God, this sounds crazy to say. Obviously, I would rather have Embiid than Giannis at similar prices if positions weren't a thing. But since you can play Giannis at power forward, I think he looks a little bit better. Same goes for Jokic. Even Luka and Harden, only have point guard. So you just get a little bit more flexibility with Giannis. It's a good matchup against the Lakers. I'm more interested in Giannis here than I think I have been in a while.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it stands out because the Lakers aren't very good.
Also Milwaukee on the road, only 4-point favorites. Just a better chance that you get the 34, 35-minute game from Giannis.
And I'm happy to get some shares of Holiday and Middleton. This is a fast-paced game, and the Lakers stink. So give me a couple shots
Portis
here.
In there too.
Yeah, right. I mean, Portis is the highest owned guy in this game.
Oh, he's finally getting ownership.
15 on FanDuel, 6.5 on DraftKings, but that 6.5 is the highest mark on the Bucks.
Yeah, man. If this Milwaukee ownership holds, I'm going to end up with a lot of Bucks.
It's interesting to look at. I think the Lakers are interesting to look at as well. No real ownership coming in here. 7% to LeBron. I think we've had this conversation a lot. I think Anthony Davis is the best option from the Lakers, and he is unowned. 10-8 on FanDuel with power forward eligibility, 10-4 on DraftKings. I'm still willing to get to Russ at 8,100 on FanDuel, although he stinks. Monk looks okay. If Trevor Ariza is going to fall into 30 minutes again, 3,700 for Ariza looks okay. The Lakers look a little bit better than they should.
I think LeBron's my favorite guy here ahead of Davis. I think Davis is fine, 10,400 center only. But on DraftKings, you have point guard and small forward on LeBron. He's averaged 1.32 DraftKings points per minute in the games he's played with Davis this year. He sort of accidentally played a lot of minutes last game. They had said coming in that he was going to play, but they were going to take it easy. The game went to overtime. He played a lot, which to me just means he probably is going to play a lot tonight. Like, he played 40 minutes in that game. So I just assume you're getting back to 36, 37 minutes of LeBron at 10,500. He's the top guy for me here. Davis would be second. I have a very difficult time getting to Russ. 9K on DraftKings, like, the ceiling is there, but the rates take a huge hit when he's playing with Davis and with LeBron. The playing time isn't even guaranteed. I mean, he didn't even play in overtime last game. They played Talen Horton-Tucker instead. They played Malik Monk instead. It's just really difficult, I think, to trust his production and his playing time.
And my liking of AD, by the way, 10-8 on FanDuel, power forward center. LeBron 10-5, small forward, power forward. So one is 7% owned, the other is 2. Yeah. I'll take the 2% owned AD with power forward center on
good
FanDuel.
Plays there.
Yeah, same. I don't have a huge difference between the two. Just so much easier to get to AD when he has that power forward eligibility.
Yeah, they're both for the season. In the 17 games they've played together, and I only have DraftKings in front of me, but Davis is at 1.28 DraftKings points per minute. LeBron's at 1.32.
Yeah, I have.
So you're kind of just talking about the same play.
Yeah, I have them basically at 1.35 combined today. So
yeah.
Okay. Anything else for the Lakers?
The Pels with Hart are a very bad NBA team.
Yeah.
No, nothing else for the Lakers.
Orlando, 3.5-point dogs in Portland. We are obviously not going to talk about Portland after this because how the hell can we? A lot of ownership, though. Well, we think that CJ is in a trade. We don't know if that trade will be finalized today, if he's playing today, if more players are going to be involved in that trade. Like none of this is finalized or anything.
Quickly touch on if McCollum's the only piece leaving.
We don't even know if that's the case at this point. I don't know what's going on. I mean, this is a Portland team that is also a bit in flux over the past week and a half. They've already moved out 2 other guys that were playing 70 minutes a game. We'll see what we have when we open it up. Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., all like 15 to 20% owned. They looked good before. They're going to look a little bit better if Portland is trading CJ McCollum today. I'm going straight to a bunch of Cole Anthony like we normally do. I'm going to Jalen Suggs like you normally do. I kind of like Orlando today.
Yep, so do I. Portland's terrible. This is just one of those games where it's going to be brutal to watch, but there should be a lot of running around and scoring and fantasy production from 2 very bad teams. Wendell Carter Jr. at 6,800, power forward eligible, looks very good. Cole Anthony looks very good. Suggs' salary is getting expensive, but you're still likely to get 32, 33 minutes. He looks okay. Wagner looks okay. I like taking some shots at Bamba. His playing time hasn't been the most appealing recently, but if you get 26 minutes from him here at 5K, there is a massive ceiling there. So yeah, I mean, I like all of the starters. I think Carter and Anthony are the true priorities.
Same. Suggs 5,500 on FanDuel. That is a price tag that I like a bit, but 26% owned already. So
Bamba projected for 1% ownership on DraftKings. I like, so I would go to 5K Bamba as like the high ceiling tournament center before I went to Capella, I think.
Okay. Anything else for Orlando?
No, they just look good.
All right, if CJ leaves, I already liked Simons before this. I already liked Yusuf Nurkic before this. Who gets the benefit if there's no CJ McCollum today? Because obviously we're playing Simons and Nurkic no matter, like they're already 10% owned or more. They're just good plays today no matter what.
Yeah, Simons and Nurkic look great no matter what. If McCollum goes, I would assume you're getting. So I don't know who would start. Like they could go Dennis Smith Jr., they could go McLemore. They could go Winslow. So I don't know who would start, but those guys would all at least, whoever's starting would look like the best out of that group. If Dennis Smith Jr. is starting at 3,100, then for sure play him. Same goes for Winslow at 3K. McLemore at 3,500 if he's starting would look good. But even if they're not starting, like it's just going to lower their ownership and you're still going to have a path to success given how cheap they are. So mixing and matching any of those guys, I think is going to look good, assuming McCollum's out. CJ Ellaby at 3,400, I'm assuming that he is starting. He looks pretty good with shooting guard, small forward eligibility. So I think you're just playing a lot of Portland, basically.
Make sure you're watching the deeper dive later today, 4:45 to 6 o'clock, and then live before lock from 6 to 7. We need more information on Portland before we could actually really dive into this one. And with a 10 o'clock start, this one could be a bit of a mystery even into lock. But I'll tell you this much. Don't put CJ McCollum in your lineups right now. Let's close it out. Minnesota at Sacramento. Wolves are 3.5-point favorites in Sacktown. They're basically full strength, although everybody is questionable, unfortunately. On Minnesota, we've got a Q tag for Beverly, Russell, Prince, Reed, and Okogie. I put everybody in, at which point the highest owned guy is Anthony Edwards at 11% on FanDuel. I would like to have a lot more at 7,400. No real priorities here, but low ownership on Edwards, low ownership on Russell, probably because of the Q tag. And it's a great matchup against Sacramento. What do you do with Minnesota?
Yeah, just one of those teams where I think I'm using different pieces from Minnesota kind of to like round out lineups with relatively low owned, high upside guys. I don't think that you're pointing to one of Towns, Russell, Edwards and saying like, oh, this is the guy that is clearly the best. But there's a pretty good chance one of these guys has a big game in a good matchup against Sacramento, assuming they're all in. So I kind of just like getting to all of them at, decent rates. Same goes for Beverly at 5,100. If guys start getting ruled out, if Beverly's out and Russell's in, it's a benefit to Russell in terms of assists. If Russell's out, it's a benefit to Beverly and everybody, actually, I guess. So yeah, like assuming everybody's in, it's just a team where nobody's a priority, but I do just like getting to them in general. As guys start getting ruled out, then obviously the guys that are in look better.
Jeremiah Johnson Simons is not the next to be traded by Portland. That's basically the opposite of what they're doing. Let's close it out with Sacramento. Q tag on Bagley. Q tag on De'Aaron Fox. Will De'Aaron Fox ever play basketball again? That's the question, because he has been questionable for what feels like 2 weeks. He's been out 8 games, however. I put Bagley and Fox in. I don't really know what to do here.
Yeah, me neither. Like, he keeps being questionable. He did an interview maybe, I don't know, 5 to 7 days ago now, where like he said it's just a pain tolerance thing, but that he can't move laterally. So
that's great.
Yeah, so it's like when I heard that interview, I was just like, this guy isn't questionable. Like, he's not coming back anytime soon. But it's been long enough now where like I have absolutely no idea. I guess put him in and then swap around later. Like, I'm going to be swapping before the 10 o'clock games anyway, most likely because of Portland, Orlando. So I'll probably just start with Fox in and then swap around.
I like Buddy Hield for 4,800 on DraftKings today. Shooting guard, small forward. He's in like the same bucket as Kevin Huerter for today. Just guys that can play in multiple positions in a DK lineup that are like mid-priced and could pop a ceiling. It's not that I love him or anything. It's just he makes lineups work on a day where we don't have any value.
So I had missed this, but Raspy Treasure's dad is correct in chat. Fox did go through a full practice yesterday.
Well, that is good to see. At least had to happen eventually, right?
Yeah,
so that makes
at least makes me feel better about
a
putting
little
him
bit
in, because
too.
Recently it's just been like, normally I project questionable guys in, but recently it's just been like, why am I projecting this guy in? That makes me at least feel better about that. And if we assume he's in, like, I'm not really interested in paying 8,600 for Halliburton. I'm not really interested in paying the price tags on any of these guys outside of maybe taking some shots at $5,100 Rashawn Holmes. Semi-related quickly to the Holmes piece. What are the Kings doing? Like, so Damian Jones has been coming off the bench, playing really, really well. And then last game, they just like go to Alex Len.
I have no idea. I don't get it. 8 minutes for Len for reasons that make very little sense to me. I don't know why Holmes isn't playing more. It makes no sense.
I mean, when Holmes hasn't played more, it's typically because Damian Jones is coming in and just playing really well.
Right. And then they're like, you know what? We need Alex Len instead.
Right. Yeah, like Jones had been really fun to play in tournaments because he kept being like 3,500. Nobody would play him. And he's playing like 20 to 22 minutes and just smashing. And then I look, I'm like, man, why is Damian Jones not doing anything? Oh, Alex Len is playing. But yeah, so I mean, Jones did play in the second half. Len didn't. I still assume that you're getting like a 20. The way I typically project it is like 27 for Holmes, 21 for Jones. I think that makes them look probably like the most appealing pieces here.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. Anything else for Sacramento?
No.
10 games up, 10 games down. CJ McCollum, Larry Nance, and Tony Snell on their way to the Pelicans.
Who was it?
McCollum, Nance, and Snell.
What's Nance's? I mean, Nance is probably the most valuable piece in that trade, right?
Unquestionably, yes. Yeah, because he is a very interesting fit alongside Zion if he's healthy, because he can play as a small ball 5 rim protector. That is interesting. Nance has one more year at $9.6 million. That's a great deal in general. Snell is irrelevant here, but having Nance and Snell going to the Pelicans makes a lot more sense in this trade than when it was just CJ.
Snell is relevant from a DFS standpoint.
Today, yeah, because he was going to play 36 minutes today, and now he isn't.
That's another spot in the starting lineup now that's open. So, yeah, I mean, just play a lot of Portland.
Yeah. Wild stuff. I love the trade deadline. It's the best time of the year.
I like it with trades like this where like injured players are getting traded for the most part. I hate the trade deadline because I finally have like figured out rates and everything for everybody. And then you start getting like Norman Powell to the Clippers. And it's just like, oh, what do I do with Reggie Jackson now?
Yeah, it gets tricky. NFL Strategy Show coming up next. Make sure you're watching the Deeper Dive in Live Before Lock later today. Thank you guys for watching. Hit the like button when you leave. We're out of here. Peace.